Today, we're going to be looking into how we can gain better visibility by using Synergist. I know we've got a lot of our clients joining us today, so welcome to all of you. I hope that you're all well. For anybody that wants any more information after this webinar, please do contact me, or you'll have, for those of you that are clients, you should have somebody that looks after you, so feel free to contact them as well to go into this in any more detail. Because it is a webinar, we've only got 20 minutes. I'm hoping that you'll get lots of good tips out of it, but unfortunately there's only so much I can go into. For those of you that do use Synergist, you'll know, or hopefully you'll know, or be getting to know, that the reporting side of the system, how good it is in terms of giving you access to visibility. I think one of the main things to consider is ensuring that we have a process in place in order to actually access the visibility that you need. And quite often we almost work backwards. So we would say, okay, so what visibility is it that you're lacking? Why are you struggling to gain this visibility? We could then work out ways in which, if you want to see forecasting plans, then you need to create opportunities. So little things like that, where processes will enable you to receive the type of visibility in which you're after. Now, I do just want to double check that you can all hear me and that you can all see my screen, okay? If anybody's having any trouble with either of those, if you could just pop something in the questions box, and if I don't receive anything, I'll assume that all is well and that you can hear me and see my screen, okay? I do just like to double check, as it is a live webinar and these things happen, so okay, I can't see anything coming in, so I'll continue. Okay, so the areas that I'm going to focus on today are: why do we need visibility? What visibility is it that we do need? And processes behind getting this. Now, in terms of what visibility, now each agency, I'm sure has their own visions of what they want to get out of the system. So I'm going to be focusing on a few of these points. I will be running further sessions, further webinars looking at different areas, but for this one, I'm going to be looking at some management key performance indicators in terms of from a forecasting perspective, but also from a time management perspective. So we're going to be looking at how we get accurate forecasting to receive the forecasting type reports and key performance indicators, why they're so important as well. We're also going to be looking at how we can manage time better within the system. Excuse me, in order to get things like utilization reports, also using things like estimating accurately to get those type of reports and help to gain visibility on your job tracking, potentially looking at where jobs are going over and why they're going over. And that also falls below into job health and client health. So let's have a look at, we want to see which of our clients are profitable, which ones aren't so profitable, who are we over servicing on, why are we over servicing on them. So all of the things that I'll go through today, I'm hoping will give you some tips around those particular aspects. If there's anything that you're after that I'm not covering, please do contact me afterwards. More than happy to go through it. As I said, there's so much visibility that Synergist, the software, can give you. As I'm sure, again, a lot of you are aware, it has got 3 reporting areas. You've got the data viewer, standard reports, and also your dashboards. Unfortunately, I just don't have time to go through every single one of those today. So first of all, we want to know, well, okay, it's all well and good seeing the visibility. First of all, why do we want to see the visibility? It may be because we are over servicing. So we do want to look into, clients and jobs, potentially resource of ours as well, and figure out why we're over servicing. Another reason why we want to gain that type of visibility may be because we want to know, again, which of our clients are profitable, which aren't. And we want to ensure that our staff members are also hitting their utilisation, and if they're not hitting their utilisation, why they're not. So it's all well and good, obviously, receiving that visibility. We obviously know why we want the visibility. What we need to do is ensure that we've got processes in place to receive it, but also that we've got actions to actually take on the visibility that we receive. So I'm going to start by looking at the forecasting side of things. This is focusing very much on your forecasting type visibility. So looking at, potential jobs coming through and potential values coming through the business and how this can be made really nice and accurate. So first of all, and also, sorry, just to note, I will be using the system, so Synergist, as a live demonstration. So bear with me, and I will kind of switch to and from just so you can get a nice visual of these areas as well. So sell more hours than you have available. This will help not only with things like, ensuring that we know the number of hours in which we have available and ensuring that they are being sold. By forecasting accurately, we'll be able to do things such as, okay, well, if we haven't sold the number of hours in which we have available within a particular month, we can look at our forecasting and say, okay, what can we get through? We know we've not sold the number of hours available. Let's try and get some through. Another reason why it's really important to have that visibility and to take action on it is if we aren't selling the number of hours in which we have available, it can cause things such as staff not hitting their utilization targets because they will just work on the hours which have been allocated in front of them. So input and accurate data is a really, really key thing. I think throughout the whole system, the system is only as good as what you put into it. So if you want to gain good visibility, which is nice and accurate, that you can take action on, you need to ensure that at the initial stages, all the way from the forecasting side of things, accurate information is inputted into the system. And again, I'll be going through that as a live example in a minute. Keep track of your pipeline. What are the chances of winning it? So for those of you that are using the CRM side of Synergist, you've got the ability to track pipeline, to track waiting values. It's really important to keep these up to date to ensure that when you're looking at, potential value and the chances of that value actually coming into the business, it's going to be realistic. What's the net profit and gross profit on the job? So when you're building an estimate, it's obviously, if you're using templates, then great. If you're building one sort of quite bespokely, it's always important to look at those profit margins, which you'll have in the bottom of your estimating tool. Also to consider, obviously, your estimate being your internal budget, your quote being your external, what are we selling it for budget. It's also important, if you do offer any discount on the job, to ensure that you are still going to receive an achievable and a realistic profit, whether that's gross or net margin on that job as well. Okay, so I'm going to switch over and let's have a look at some of those areas that I've just mentioned. So within our dashboard, this is our sales dashboard within Synergist, you have got some of these areas which is giving you the visibility, and it will also help you to take action on that visibility forecasting. So let's start with the bottom right hand side where we've got the hours sold chart. This is where we've inputted the number of hours in which we have available based on our resource, based on utilization of each of those resources. So how many chargeable hours do we have to sell? If we keep track whether or not they are being sold, for example, here we can see that, okay, well, we've not yet sold the number of hours in which we have available. I've got this set to a quarterly period. It's completely up to you how you set that. I can then gain visibility with things like my pipeline reports to ensure that if we haven't sold the number of hours we have available, we can look and say, oh, well, actually, we've got quite a few there that have given us verbal commitment. Let's try and get those pushed through. We've also got things like potential billing forecasts. So it's all well and good saying, okay, this is the potential value. But if some of you may bill 50% up front, 50% at the end, or the job might span over, a 6-month period and you're going to bill in installments. If you put those plans against your opportunities in the initial stages, not only can we see the potential value coming in, but we can also see if that value comes in, this is when we're actually be going to bill for the work. So it's really good for, cash flow purposes. So on our opportunities list, we've got this is what is if you're using it. If you're not, is what would be a list of all of your potential jobs coming through. Against all of these, we've got things like expected close dates, we've got pipeline, and we've got the weighting values. Now, with the expected close date, even if things change, which it does tend to happen in reality, we all know that, if the client comes to you or the prospect potentially comes to you and says, oh, actually, we've not made a decision yet, you need to make sure you're updating that continuously for reporting purposes. Pipeline stages, again, those always need to be kept up to date, because if we're looking at our dashboard report, we've not sold the number of hours that we have available, but actually, that pipeline report is inaccurate. How are we going to get work pushed through? How do we know which ones to go after, what to spend our time on? So that's really important. The weighting values, this is obviously important from an organisational aspect, but it's also important from a reporting visibility type aspect, because if we're putting the chances against them, it may be that we've got a list altogether of lots and loads of opportunities, some with high values, some with low values. If we're looking at a report, it looks as though we've got loads of capacity, loads of value coming through the business, but actually, are all of those definitely going to be promoted into live jobs? If they're not, if you've got a really slim chance of winning it, then perhaps put that as 25% weighting. So you've only got a 25% chance of winning it. If you think that, that it's a regular client and actually we're just in the planning stages, but we're sort of 90% certain that they will proceed with the job, then put that as 75%. When we're then looking at our reporting, we can actually do the new business forecast, capacity plans, based on the chances of winning it. So it will only pull through in say this case 25% of the value. It just makes things for, again, cash flow type purposes a lot more accurate. Okay. Again, something that you can also take action on by using this type of, or by putting these type of processes in place, which will give you the visibility. The type of actions you can then take are, okay, well, what do we spend our time on? We as new business, we want to ensure that we're not spending time on potential opportunities, that aren't of high value and that don't have a very good chance of being put through. We want to spend our time on ones that do potentially are quite high value, or a value in which meet your profile in terms of your target market customer, but also that you've got a good chance of winning. If you haven't got a good chance of winning, then perhaps a bit more nurturing is needed to get them up to that level. Okay, so the next area, I think that's enough from a new business perspective. If you want any more information, again, please do let me know. More than happy to go through it in more detail. From the time aspect, and also your job and your client health tips aspect, here are some tips on how we can gain better visibility through things like, are we over servicing? Are our staff hitting utilisation targets? So we've put things in place at the initial stages to ensure that things like we should be hitting utilisation because we're selling all of the hours. If we're estimating accurately, that should reduce the risk of over servicing. So now we need to put things in place to ensure that we aren't over servicing, that our staff are hitting the utilisation targets, but not only that we actually can get that data nice and easily. So again, I'm going to just quickly summarise some of these, but then I'm going to sort of jump back over to the system. I think a really key one here is make sure time is being recorded daily and check any notes. So if we're looking at our list of live jobs and we can see that we are, in fact, I'm going to show you an example rather than just talking about this. If we're looking at our list of live jobs, this thermometer bar here is showing us how far through our budget we are. So we've estimated for a job. People are now recording time against the job. It needs to be done daily so we get this visibility on how far through the budget we are on each of these jobs. This is where we can then start taking action. So if we're 50% of the way through the budget, we can then go into that job and start analysing, okay, 50% of the way through the budget, are we actually 50% of the way through the work? Or is it that the client's moved the goalposts? Is it that there's been some human error? If we've estimated accurately, the chances of that is reduced. Is it that a different resource has carried out the work? It can give us the ability to take action before we potentially overservice. It may be that we renegotiate with the client if it's them that have moved the goalposts. This system will also enable you to give the evidence. If time is recorded daily, it's a lot easier to catch this before it does go over. If time is being recorded quite inaccurately, if what would happen if we've got a job, it looks like we're on budget, and then it gets to, say, Friday, and everyone records their time against it, and then suddenly we're way over. It's, then we're not in a very good position to go back to our client. Whereas if we're going slightly over, potentially we've got the ability to go back to that client, or to ensure that things within the studio are going smoothly. If they're not, we can then start identifying why. Another thing where this is really useful, having this type of visibility, is it might be that it's actually one job type that we keep going over on, in which case perhaps we need to look at that job type. Have we got the right resource doing it? Have we estimated accurately? Is that job type, perhaps we just need more time to do it because there's something slightly bespoke about it. It may also be one client that you spot a pattern on. So you can start spotting the patterns by tracking this type of information. For one client, do all of their jobs keep going over? If they do, why? If it's because the client's a bit slightly awkward or they're moving the goalposts, do we really want them as a client? Are they, how profitable are they to us? And that then brings me onto my dashboard. I'm just going to move on to my management dashboard, and I'll have to put some dates in quickly here for you all to see. So this dashboard here is actually showing us things such as top clients. So we can start looking at, and again, this is really a flash preview. It's not a detailed report. There are more detailed reports within the system that will show you this type of information. But here we're saying, okay, who are our top 5 most profitable clients based on, I've got my set turnover in this particular period. So another action that you can take by gaining this type of visibility is not only spotting patterns with clients on, if we get loads and loads of work for them, but they're not appearing in here. Perhaps we're over-servicing. Perhaps we could either try our best to reduce that over-servicing by putting things in place such as increasing the hours with that client, because we know that they're going to come back and ask for a million amendments. It may be that you look at these clients, and actually if that one client who you keep over servicing on you think's profitable but actually they're not appearing in here, let's actually have a look at the ones that are appearing within here, and let's try and grow them. Let's see what services we offer them. So this one, for example, British Airways, we can see that potentially they keep appearing on a monthly, quarterly basis. Well, let's have a look into them and let's see what we offer them. Let's see, the job types. Let's see if we can offer them other services. Potentially we can actually grow that client, the clients that we overservice for. If we can't add more hours to the budget, and if they're not appearing as one of our sort of most profitable, or at least being profitable, and we do keep overservicing and we're actually potentially could lead to losing money, perhaps we need to prioritize, where we spend our time for the business's sake. Things like utilization as well. That's another thing that I mentioned in our the business health area. So this here has given us a nice summary on the chargeable and non-chargeable hours. So another thing to do is obviously ensure that these chargeable hours are actually being billed and they're not hours that have just been, over-serviced, going back to the point that I've just mentioned. This is a really basic one on the company as a whole. We can analyse this based on teams. We're just looking at how many hours are running through chargeable, non-chargeable. One of the actions to ensure that our staff hit the utilisation targets are going back to the estimate being accurate, also jumping back to selling enough hours within the agency. This will help to enable staff to hit their utilisations because they've got the hours there to do. What we can do on that is actually pull further staff utilisation reports within the system and start looking at, okay, so this person, it's a really expensive resource of ours, but they seem to be doing a lot of non-chargeable hours. But actually, they've got quite a high charge rate. They're one of our most valuable resources. Why aren't we putting them on jobs where we can charge their hours? If we want to, if the aim is to do things like increase profitability, that potentially is one, then perhaps we need to reduce their non-chargeable, increase their chargeable, or split the non-chargeable out slightly. Now I know different roles do different amounts of chargeable and non-chargeable. Some of the resources such as your account handlers, they are going to be doing quite a lot of non-chargeable time because they have got admin and things like that, or phone calls that they can't charge for. But resource like senior designers, developers, that's certainly something that we can gain that visibility, and certainly take action to ensure that the business as profitable as it can be in terms of the hours that we're carrying out. So just to summarise that, because I have gone through quite a few things quite quickly there, ensuring that it's nice and accurate at the initial stages will give you a nice heads up on what's potentially coming through the business. We can then take action by ensuring time is recorded daily to actually track when they are live. And then afterwards, we should, if we've done all of that nice and accurately and smoothly, we should be able to get key reports such as who are our top clients, who are we over servicing, things like staff utilisation and job types. Are we over servicing on particular job type, particular clients? So really spotting those patterns and taking action as well. Okay, so I'm going to jump back over here, and just a few tips there, just to summarise again, is input accurate information to the business at the early stages and throughout. So ensuring that data is always up to date. If you've got a due date and it's moved, make sure you change it in the system. If you've got pipeline stages and actually it's gone from negotiation to verbal commitment, make sure that is changed. If the likelihood of winning a piece of work has gone from sort of to 50% chance to 75% chance, again, move that, because in our capacity plans, potential capacity value coming through, we need to see that. We need to ensure that we've got the resource, and also inputting the hours, so inputting the time into the system daily really helps the job tracking side of things as well, where you can start identifying patterns against clients' jobs, resource that are working on those jobs, and potentially do something before we come to something such as like over servicing. Okay, so that is all from me today. I hope that you found it useful. If you've got, any ideas from this webinar in terms of what you would like to, perhaps some sort, if you would like some consultancy alongside of some of the areas that I've mentioned today, if you would like some further training, perhaps you don't use the new business tool, but you want to, or if you would like to look at Synergist, for those of you that don't use the tool, please do contact me. Obviously, always available, and we hope to speak to you soon. And please do carry on joining the webinars. If you've got any ideas on other webinars that we can do as a company, always free, and please do not hesitate to drop me any feedback as well. Hope to speak to you all soon. Thank you very much for your time.